to kind of the framing for the workshop that we're about to do. And so I think one of the kind of most important things is that all of us in some way, shape, or form are impacting the building and construction and development of technology in this field, which means that we've chosen one of the hardest things that we could attempt, which is to build and construct well. And so we're planning to start with a provocation, and this comes from the basis that 90% of startups fail. In health tech, it's closer to about 80%, and most of the ones that survived didn't actually change healthcare. They might have changed a workflow, optimized a billing process, or made a dashboard slightly better looking. And the system ultimately absorbed and stayed exactly the same. And so,
is this the pep
yeah,
talk? Not builder.
yeah, exactly. And so the question for the next hour really is how do I make these companies survive, or how do we make these companies survive? And it's a bigger question of also, is the ecosystem we're entering even designed for the kind of impact that we want to have? And if it isn't, what would a better one look like? And could these companies be one of the ones that changed not just healthcare, but the way we innovate in healthcare? And so kind of jumping into this, venture capital is really designed for software where we're designed to scale fast and fail fast and exit in 3 to 5 years, and our modern approach towards that. And count on 1 in 10 companies producing that 100x return. And that math really works for consumer apps, but not necessarily for healthcare, where most of the impactful innovations require time, require effort, and might not necessarily make a 100x return. And so this really kind of makes us question our horizons and rethink the way we navigate this landscape, and also relies on evidence generation that can't be sprinted. Sometimes the results of what we're looking at or what we're trying to study don't show in 5 years, and there's some misalignments that occur as a result. And the first being innovation typology, and so we collapse drugs, software, care delivery models, and community interventions all into one pipeline that's not really designed to capture all of this wide diversity of different innovation. And there's also mathematical misalignments as well, where a company improving outcomes at a steady pace can be sometimes be considered failure by VC. They're wondering, why isn't this accelerating? Why isn't this booming, even though it's being successful gradually? And then also the values. So the communities most burdened by health inequities are the ones that are oftentimes served last by innovations, and they don't necessarily attract the same investments as the communities that are affluent and have a lot of money to put forward initially at the forefront. And there's a systematic review in the BMJ that was done of, I think it was like 50 or so studies across 8 countries. It really showed that private equity ownership was associated with higher costs to patients and mixed to harmful impacts on quality. And so it didn't really show that there's been significant improvements when private equity is involved in the management of hospitals. And this is where the idea that moving fast and breaking things really, when applied to systems that care for human beings, can hurt us in a sense. And so, there is also a bright spot. The ACA's Medicare Shared Savings Program is one way that they've created financial architectures for value-based innovations, and companies like Aledade have recruited independent primary care providers into accountable care organizations that are rewarded for actually reducing the total cost of care. And so they're incentivizing value with improvements to the system. And the main lesson there is that aligned innovation doesn't necessarily arise from the market alone, but it requires all these different factors around us to be involved. And people like us, like academics, people like us who are innovators, people like us who are funders, to all come together and sit and kind of engage in discourse about these conversations. And so on the link that I'd sent out in the email this morning, you should have 2 scripts. And so before you head over to those breakout rooms, we'd love for you to kind of read through these companies, and both of these are real composites, not necessarily exactly real and not necessarily exactly fictional either. Just read them and sit with the discomfort, think through them, and engage in the discourse a little bit more on kind of what these companies are doing well, but also where are the misalignments between what they're building, how they're being funded, and also what patients actually need. We'd also love for you to chat a little bit about which company is more likely to survive, company 1 or company 2, and why. And why are those why is that company more likely than the other? And which is also more likely to improve health? And why are these being asked and also being analyzed as different questions? and should they be? And there's also, with one of the companies, is there a version of MedFlow AI that could be built ethically, or is there a funding model that could sustain Community Pulse, which is the other company? And before you begin, designate a spokesperson for your group, and that person will have 60 seconds once we reconvened to share our group's insights and facilitate some discussion when we're back together. So with that, I'd like to kind of just break off for the pep talk and let you guys go to your breakout groups and jump in.